Hey guys, what's up? This is Tyler from Animator Kid, and today I'm going to be asking the question, is the Federation in Star Trek communist? Now most videos about this topic would start off with something like, now let's define communism. But I'm going to be unpredictable and start off with the Federation. The United Federation of Planets, according to Memory Alpha Wiki, is an interstellar federal republic comprised of planetary governments that agree to exist semi-autonomously under a single central government based on the principles of universal liberty, rights, and equality, and to share their knowledge and resources in peaceful cooperation, scientific development, space exploration, and defensive purposes. I know that's a long definition, but each part is important, so let me break it down. First, Interstellar Federal Republic. That means a union of partially self-governing states with democratic central power, kind of like the United States of America, composed of planetary governments that agree to exist semi-autonomously under a single central government. Alright, I'll stop there. That's basically saying the same thing as before, so we know that the Federation is a democratic republic consisting of member states that function semi-autonomously, again like the USA, based on principles of universal liberty, rights, and equality. Essentially a liberal, progressive society where everyone is treated with respect and allowed a reasonable degree of freedom, and to share their knowledge and resources in peaceful cooperation, scientific development, space exploration, and defensive purposes. That one's easy. Basically a communal society in the case of information. Sounds like the internet. Scientific development, to further the sharing of resources, space exploration, Starfleet, and finally defensive purposes. Also Starfleet. Now that's all fine and dandy, but the real question is, how could humanity and the inhabitants of over 150 member worlds achieve this type of society? The answer to that question is, well, complicated. There's even a whole book about it, Trekonomics. Not a sponsor. But it starts with a little something called the replicator. The replicator is, quote, a device that uses transporter technology to dematerialize quantities of matter and then rematerialize that matter in another form. The replicator can provide everything a person might need, the material things at least, all the way from raw materials for construction to food. The existence of such a technology devalues the use of money and basically destroys private enterprise. But there's one problem with this, namely, replicators in their current form do not exist until the 24th century, and we know from the show that the New World economy, as it were, came about by the 22nd century. So what gives? Well, we are told several times throughout the franchise that humanity has moved past the need for the accumulation of wealth, eliminating hunger, poverty, and war. In order to achieve such a society, there would need to be a massive political movement, a political revolution, if you will, to place such an emphasis on social and economic justice. Exactly how and when this would happen is a story for another time, but the fact is, in Star Trek, they get there. Material wealth is no longer the driving force of human society, and individuals work to better themselves and their community. We do know that the Federation uses some sort of currency when trading with other cultures, and that currency is called the Federation credit. The credit essentially acts as a medium of exchange and is extensively referenced throughout the original series and at least once in the Next Generation. But how can the Federation have a currency, yet several characters claim that there is no money in the future? In my estimation, the credit is a digital fiat currency that only has value in certain situations. For example, it cannot buy food or clothing or shelter, but it can be used to buy luxury items such as tribbles. We also see certain individuals such as Harry Mudd who conduct their affairs with profit motive in mind, although these people would be considered outlaws. The TNG reference to credits listed on Memory Alpha is in reference to the Barzan wormhole, meaning the Barzanians likely still conduct monetary transactions. Alright, we got that out of the way, so what does this have to do with communism? Well, right now I'm about to explain communism, just in case you aren't familiar with it. Essentially, a communist society, in the paraphrased words of Wikipedia, is a system that emerges from technological advances and productive forces, characterized by common ownership of the means of production with free access to goods, and that is classless and stateless, with no exploitation of labor. Now let me break that down. First, a system that emerges from technological advances and productive forces. So a technologically advanced society that emerges from the hard work and determination of humans. And in the case of science fiction, also robots. Common ownership of the means of production. with free access to goods. Now, common ownership is defined as the holding of assets indivisibly as common property in contrast to individual members or groups, i.e., companies or entrepreneurs. This, combined with free access to goods, brings back to mind the replicator technology, which provides users with free access to a number of materials. The ownership portion is actually kind of a misnomer because true communism implies a lack of ownership, which does jog with the theme in Star Trek of the lack of material wealth. Finally, classless and stateless with no exploitation of labor. Classless meaning there is no division between people based on wealth, education, social status, etc. So no one taking advantage of others. However, the stateless portion implies no government, and we know that the Federation is a democratic republic, with the president of the UFP being both the head of government and head of state. This flies right in the face of true Marxist communist theory, as written by none other than Karl Marx, but all the so-called communist nations throughout our world's history have been authoritarian regimes. That's where we kind of get into semantics, as there are of course different flavors of communism. Nations like the Soviet Union were based on a pre-planned economy, or a command economy, in which all the resources are allocated by a central authoritarian power, in other words socialism, and rationed amongst the population. Marxist theories, though, did call for a superabundance of wealth, or goods in this case, which arises from technology and changes in social relations of production. This allows for the distribution of goods based on need, and that's exactly what we see in Star Trek. So let's recap by listing the traits of a communist society and comparing them to the traits of the United Federation of Planets. A system that emerges from technological advances in productive forces. Check. Common ownership of the means of production and free access to goods. Check. Classless and stateless with no exploitation of labor. Check. Except for the stateless part, because the government of the UFP is responsible for the distribution of resources, foreign policy, and military operations through Starfleet. Let's go back and list the traits of the UFP and see how closely they line up with communist theory. Interstellar Federal Republic. Nah. A republic implies the division of power amongst various states, which is very much in contrast to all flavors of communism. Planetary governments that agree to exist semi-autonomously under a single central government. Again, no, as subordinate states that exhibit anything short of full autonomy is also characteristic of a federal republic, not anything close to communism, based on the principles of universal liberty, rights, and equality. Sure, but in light of the previous bullet points, that doesn't change anything. To share their knowledge and resources in peaceful cooperation, scientific development, space exploration, and defensive purposes. That's the closest thing on the list to a communal society, in that information and resources are shared among the population, meaning the economy is planned, in this case by the government, meaning at best it's socialist. So is the Federation communist? No, not really. It's not anywhere close to even the most basic interpretation of Marxist thought. Now, if you came here just for the answer to the question in the title, then I suppose, for you, this video's over. But I want to figure out if there's a modern political science term that defines any portion of human society in Star Trek or its economy. For that, though, I'll need to dedicate an entire second part to this video, which I'll release next week. Until then, I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like and share this video. You can follow me on social media at these sites. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to be awesome. Live long and prosper.